This is where Sora and company come in, but with Hell being Hades' domain, we can't touch him. So his backing of Boron turns into him covering our escape from Hell. Someone needs to liberate him from Hell.
I'm Sora. Goofy! Wow!
Hades then decides to take Cerberus on us, again, even though we beat his guard dog before, and we do so here. However, from seeing this display, Hades gets another idea. Why not use the Keyblade to unlock the special Colosseum that's in Hell, which is filled with all the denizens of Hell to fight, which is prime for taking on an exhausted Herc, who we also see from a cutscene with Meg just doesn't know when to quit.
Sora! Donald! Goofy!
Since like in the movie Meg's in Hades' pocket as a minion, she's conscripted by being used as a hostage into tricking Sora into doing it, while Hercules tells us of the Olympus Stone that can protect us against the debilitating effects of Hades' realm. Unfortunately, it's been stolen by Organization 13 out from under everyone's noses, and Hades' revelation that she's stuck in the underworld leaves Herc in a dilemma, as it's either save her or leave the Hydra Hades has set loose to rampage, leaving us to do it instead. And in doing so, run into the World's Organization member, Demyx, the musician, whose job is to literally anoint Sora into becoming a Heartless again to resurrect Roxas.
If the subject fails to respond, use aggression to liberate his true disposition. Right. Did they ever pick the wrong guy for this one?
Almost as if Xemnas and by proxy Xehanort is kind of a dumbass or something. He's actually the first real organization member we fight in this game as Sora. The Roxas one I don't count, and I will say he holds true to his job of annoying us, as his gimmick is before we can actually fight him, we gotta destroy all these musical note summons of his within a time limit. Fortunately, the time limit in all of the encounters with him is rather generous, as I can wipe out the music notes with little problem in each of them.
Roxas, come back to us.
Do they think Roxas dyed his hair or something? Most of the other human form nobodies look the same as their original selves. Roxas didn't, so... what, is it the face? Did Square invent the concept of the saber face before Kinoko Nasu got a crack at it? Laced with his retreat, we get the Olympus Stone, freeing us from Hell's curse so we can save Meg, and intentionally unlocking his Colosseum for him. I admit, I love it when villains win for losing. Herc shows up late after we've dealt with Pete's Heartless to evac Meg, and help us in bashing Pete's face in. However, in the rush to save Meg, Hercules has forgotten something. You can never cut off a Hydra's head as they just grow back and multiply. Hate to say it, but in all his hero training, looks like Herc's turned into a straight-up meathead and forgot to open a book on monsters to prepare himself for his opponents. So instead it's up to Sora to do it as well. Hercules, becoming an ultimate hero by delegating all of his heroic deeds to someone else while not understanding how priorities work. Fortunately, the Keyblade is more of a bashing weapon than a slashing weapon, so we eventually hit it enough to give it a concussion. The main Colosseum is wrecked, though, Herc's exhaustion now becoming more than physical, with Meg dismissing us for the time being.
Sora, Donald, Goofy, I owe you big time.
While we've been busy with that, though, Ma's been setting herself back up in Hollow Bastion with another plan. That is all thanks to Pete, managing to get a wedge in the door back at Castle Disney. No, not that one. So, Sora, you just beat the Olympus Coliseum. What are you gonna do now? I'm going to Disneyland! They knew what they were doing. That urgent missive sends us right on over, with us meeting up with Queen Minnie. Yeah, I still can't believe it took them 73 years to tie the knot. As the Heartless begin their invasion of the castle, which should be impossible. The castle is the home of the Cornerstone of Light, one of the artifacts that keeps the Realm of Light in balance with the Realm of Darkness. They shouldn't be able to get here, as the proximity to it shouldn't allow a doorway to darkness to form, but allow Maleficent to astral project an illusion of herself here.
Just what are you doing here, Maleficent?
I'm here on a property venture. I want this castle for my own.
I'm pretty sure you can contract a real estate agent to help you with that. As we were all clueless as to the how, she sends us off to recruit Merlin to see if he can't figure it out. Minnie? This guy seems a bit sketchy. I mean, he turned Prince Arthur into a squirrel, which almost meant him having more illegitimate heirs than just Mordred. Then again, depending on fictional interpretation, Merlin is kind of a massive troll, especially in the Type Moon media. At least this time it looks like he's not a complete senile old man in this interpretation, porting us back and unveiling a secret door by which the Heartless are coming through. It revealed to be a magic door to the past. Specifically, Steamboat Willie? Steamboat Willie, for those not aware, was the first animated short released by Walt Disney and his partner Oob Iwerks. They'd actually made 2 ones before that which hadn't gotten out yet, and was the debut appearance of Mickey Mouse. The short is actually something of a historical touchstone even beyond Disney itself as well. It was the first cartoon with synchronized sound, which only started to be a regular thing in the film medium a year before. Before this point, any movies or theatrical shorts were silent films where any auditory soundtrack was played on a separate audio system instead of playable as part of the film itself. And there was no dialogue from the characters. Instead, any words said showing up on big text boxes after a statement, with context all needing to be conveyed with actions instead of exposition. As the more exposition there was, the more it broke the flow of the narrative. It is why show, don't tell has remained a watchword for film and TV makers as a result. Synchronized sound, however, well, it's why we have the entertainment media we have today. And because Disney was ahead of the curve on using this method of filmmaking few others were bothering with, well, it's one of the few factors to why he was eventually able to build the Disney empire. Thus, from a historical and from a meta perspective, it is actual genius to have made this a Kingdom Hearts world to visit, and by proxy to use it as a means for Heartless to enter the Disney castle, as this time trip threatens to corrupt the history of the worlds by changing how things played out, and thus by proxy the realm of light to be consumed by darkness.
You'll disrupt the time stream! Haven't you ever seen any movie?
Oh, yeah.
And how'd they get through to here? Pete. Yeah, Pete's as old as Mickey in this. As before he was the king, Mickey was just a worker on Pete's steamboat barge, which ends up making past Pete our ally when Heartless Pete tries to change time to steal away the cornerstone before it could be put in the castle, and using Pete's old steamboat to do it. And it's up to us to stop amidst the old-timey shenanigans of the black and white era of cartoons. I gotta admit, they really outdid themselves with this one, as the animation's all consistent with what would be comparable to a modern remaster of that aesthetic. And the sound all in this stage does sound like the staticky distortions you would hear and expect from analog recordings of that older era. I've seen and watched enough black and white movies that this doesn't bug me, but appreciate what they did instead. Hell, they even managed to make Pete into something of a sympathetic antagonist, by showing scenes from Pete's perspective how he's berated by Mal, despite doing everything in his power to pay her back for saving him from oblivion. Yeah, Pete makes trouble, but he's not really a bad guy in all of this. Hell, we don't really see what trouble he actually causes in the Kingdom Hearts verse in this game. And as I looked it up, that's shown in Birth by Sleep, and his big crime is talking back to Princess Minnie after he lost a popularity contest. Also, didn't they say it was Mickey that exiled him and not Minnie?
Pete's been causing trouble for ages. His Majesty banished him to another dimension a long time ago.
Kingdom Hearts, incapable of keeping its own continuity straight because it's so needlessly convoluted. Oh hey look, it's the adventures of Pete and Pete! It's a brand new day, and the sun is high. All the birds are singing that you're gonna die. So yeah, we get the cornerstone back from Pete and send Pete packing, thus fixing time and the corruption surrounding the cornerstone and getting Pete back his job, with the Heartless remaining cut off from their main body. And we drag Donald out of there before he can give in to the temptation to change the past. The next stop on the grand tour is Port Royal, the world reenacting Pirates of the Caribbean. And, once more, I actually like Pirates of the Caribbean. The original trilogy and the 4th film as a one-shot. I have not seen the 5th one, as by that time Johnny Depp had burned his bridges with me, and even if they're dumb, I just have fun with the movies. though I try not to watch them more than once every few years, as man did I get burned out in every station that played movies in the late 2000s, just spamming marathons of them to try to challenge the Harry Potter movie marathons. Can we possibly put some older movies that haven't been played in a while back in those TV marathon rotations? Like, I know there's a high and low point for interest on those running on TV, but you need breathers to not make people sick of doing them every weekend. Like Mulan as a new entry to Kingdom Hearts, this stage is reenacting the plot of its original film, also known as the best Pirates film. Probably some relation there. In this iteration of things, Pete's recruited Captain Barbossa and the cursed crew to take a shot at stopping Sora.
Those are the punks I was telling you about.
Who are you calling punks? It's Sora, Donald, and Goofy to you.
As their cursed immortality should make them immune to the Keyblades, hit until it's purified and dies abilities. To an extent. What this means in a gameplay sense is we need to shove the pirates we fight into moonlight, and we can then smack them apart. This intersects with the main pirates plot, with Barbossa trying to recover a missing cursed coin and the blood of a Turner, who was the coin's previous owner, in order to undo their curse of immortality spawned when they first stole the treasure. Now, something I liked about the first Pirates film? The ambiguity. Barbossa seemed like a reasonable, if albeit selfish man, who was merciful enough in his actions to more than hold up his end of a bargain once made if the one he made a deal with would hold up theirs. And the heroes weren't exactly good people either, and more likely to screw over people just because of their reputation. Case in point, how they all treated Jack despite him allying with the heroes, just because of his reputation as a pirate. Which, if you know the expanded universe content of the Pirates movies, you know it's because the Black Pearl was originally a slaver ship, and Jack was first literally branded as a pirate by the East India Trading Company because he freed those slaves and believed in freedom without limitations. Because of that, they burned his ship, which was then raised by Davy Jones at the cost of collecting and then selling as many souls as he freed from slavery back into slavery to Davy Jones because dramatic irony. And Jack spent all the time between doing that and the events of the second film trying to avoid that. The dude constantly gets screwed over for doing the right thing, and you think that backstory would have had some central focus in the sequel films, as it kind of does recontextualize how his character and all the others read in relation to one another. As it turns out, everyone else is more of an asshole. At the very least, Jack here, voiced by James Arnold Taylor, is certainly trying to play up more of the lovable rogue aspect of Jack's character as he gets involved in all of this to settle his score with Barbossa as he kidnaps Elizabeth Swan, who has the coin, and Team Keyblade alongside Will Turner, who was the coin's original intended owner, try to make to rescue her.
I'm Sora. This is Donald and Goofy.
And like the movie, Will betrays Jack despite there being no need to, as Jack would have just negotiated the way for all of them to walk out of there satisfied. Well, almost all of them satisfied. And thus Will makes everything worse for everyone as they have the armies of the undead after them, so he has to make an unneeded heroic sacrifice to fix his mess.
Release Elizabeth, and Sora, and Donald, and Goofy too!
Which leaves it up to Jack to save us, and take us back to the treasure trove, where Jack has his confrontation with Barbossa, complete with zombie Jack Sparrow, while we deal with a heartless chameleon. Will bleeds on his piece of the treasure, Jack returns his and kills Barbossa, and we're done here.
I feel cold.
And again, I can't help but think that in doing an abridged version of this movie, this was more Pirates of the Caribbean than the Pirates of the Caribbean sequels. With this done, 2 more worlds open up, returning us access to Agrabah and Halloween Town. We head to Agrabah first, and find this time we're enacting the second film in Iago escaping imprisonment in Jafar's lamp, and it being our mission to stop anyone from using said lamp for evil.
Jasmine!
Sora, Donald, Goofy.
As a subplot, Aladdin in his royal consort lifestyle is feeling restless without the ability to do what he wants as he did before, and is all up on joining in on the excitement of stopping such a dangerous threat to his home. which somewhat explains why his TV series had him off doing that between the events of the second and third films. Actually, of all the Disney animated movie sequels, does anyone else think Aladdin had the strongest one since it fleshed out a full narrative arc? It kind of feels like that's the case to me. To get Jafar's lamp into safe hands, we need to buy it from the shop peddler, but instead of using the Sultan's funds to deal with the threat to the kingdom, we decide to go and take stuff from the Cave of Wonders, which happens to also have Pete there, because he wants to get us out of the way so he can try and get at Jafar himself. The cave also seems to have had a facelift as the pits got an entirely new layout, and thanks Sanity for that for simplifying it. My headcanon is it shifted its innards to accommodate all of that sand that it had collapsed into it to try and keep us from escaping last time. Would explain why almost all the maps have sand as their floors. Especially as it's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. What, Disney owns Star Wars is a legitimate tangential reference. So Pete makes his attempt on our lives to distract us from Jafar, even though when you think on it, he could have just stolen the lamp while we were on this whole journey and gotten away scot-free with it long before we got back. Then again, it's Pete. I don't expect complex David Xanatos-like gambits or even clever thinking from him. Once again, legitimate tangential reference to something Disney owns. Why has a level based on gargoyles not been a thing? Kingdom Hearts could tap so many of Disney's animated series for stages since they burned most of the notable films that aren't Pixar. Even though they are now doing Pixar ones. Iago, however, makes the save in the end, preventing Jafar from achieving his freedom, for now. We get a check-in with Kairi again on the Destiny Isles, her wistfully looking out to the endless sea, until who should appear before her but Axel.
I happen to be an acquaintance of Sora's. Why don't we go see him?
Kairi, no! Don't you go to school? Stranger danger! Stranger danger!
Hey, I feel like we're friends already.
Surprisingly, she's not being taken hostage, but his gate just takes her to Twilight Town without harming her in any way. Hell, when you think about it, Axel is the one that allows her to just stop sitting on the sidelines and waiting, and instead take hold of her own destiny in getting back together her boys. Over in Halloween Town, Jack Skellington is taking a trip over to Christmas Town. Again.
Sora, Donald, and Goofy!
This stage is set after the original film, with Jack having learned his lesson from it, but still wants to bring a Halloween-y twist to the winter holiday. Only this time wiser to the differences between merriment and spoopy. What I always liked about The Nightmare Before Christmas, which honestly I still need to find a copy of, is that Jack's heart was always in the right place about doing Christmas right. He just had no real frame of reference by which to really get it right. And the story for this game for him continues to follow from that. But of course, here the Heartless come in to ruin Christmas. Starting with the mayor.
Jack, where are you? I'm only an elected official. I can't handle this by myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, the most honest politician ever. And this comes from one who is quite literally two-faced. But with the Heartless back and something afoot and the door to Christmas Town opened, that makes Jack realize that Santa's in danger. Thus our job here is to literally save Christmas. Step 1. Never let Kirk Cameron make a movie ever again. And sure enough, Santa's in danger because Miles recruited Oogie Boogie's minions to make some mischief. Over with Santa, well, he's got a bone to pick with Sora.
Well, according to my list, Sora, 7 years ago, you told everyone you did not believe in Santa Claus. Oh, that is unfortunate.
That was then. This is now, old man! Actually, when you think about it, it kinda makes sense. Santa is presumably magic, and magic is in part powered by belief. So if you stop believing in Santa, then obviously Santa's capacity to bestow gifts to you is therefore severed as the magic of it is just gone. And even if you'd meet him in person, you just can't get the magic back because knowing someone exists is not the same as believing something exists. It's kind of like the Babelfish proving God's existence in a way. If something only has faith to validate one's existence, and that faith vanishes with proof, then there's naught to do but vanish in a puff of logic. I am way overthinking this. Anyways, the brats break in and vandalize Santa's stuff on Mal's orders, only break it off when they realize Sora's here, and tip off Mal so she can in turn bring back Oogie Boogie to deal with them as well. His mechanical knowledge turning all of Santa's gift-making machines against Santa, and by proxy us.
Jack Skellington!
Oogie!
Sora, Donald, Goofy! This boss battle, like the last time we fought Oogie, is a pain not because he has a lot of health, but it is difficult to even get to him with us being stuck on the conveyors and trying to avoid all this trapped crap to even reach him. Usually by using reaction commands to bounce the explosives up to him so he falls onto the conveyors himself. As I completely suck at using reaction commands and by proxy QuickTime events as I said earlier though, this just ended up frustrating. I'd honestly rather fight one of the game's secret bosses or super strong rematches over this, as at least there, bar Sephiroth, it's about leveling and gaining the situational awareness to avoid block and deflect attacks until I have an opening to hit hard. Here, I can't frickin' do what I'm supposed to as I can't hit the frickin' button fast enough because they didn't swap triangle and square to go with them swapping circle and X in the control scheme as they should have. With this though, Oogie's turned into just a shambling mess of worms again, and Santa's saved, who in gratitude reminds Jack to not cause trouble with his fascination, lest the balance of the holidays be upset. Christmas decorations are in stock now before October's even started. If anyone is upsetting the balance of the holidays, it's frickin' Christmas! It reminds him that though he may have a fascination with his fellow year-end celebrations, what really makes him happy is scares. In the same way giving gifts, giving life, is Santa's.
After all, you're the face of Halloween, Mr. Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King, the Knight of Nightmares.
Oh, and it turns out, the whole Sora no longer believes in Santa thing? Yeah, turns out that was all Riku's fault as he said it first. Why must Riku always be the screen door on Sora's submarine? This finally brings us to the last of the world circuit, that's not Atlantica at any rate, with the Pride Lands. Like with Mushu in the Land of Dragons, since the world's been restored, our other big summon, Simba's been able to go home and continue his story from the Lion King, complete with nightmares of his father's murder. And yeah, not a Lion King fan. Why? Timon and Pumbaa. They annoy me. This is also the stage where limits are completely inaccessible, as the crew's all been turned into animals. Though this begs the question why Goofy became a turtle, tortoise, whatever. I get Donald becoming a bird hybrid and Sora blending in as a lion, but that's the one that baffles me. Regardless, due to the forced body change, we don't know what we're doing when we're attacked by hyenas, who don't kill us only because the world's antagonist Scar calls them away before they can. Thus, Sora and company are allowed to get their bearings and used to their bodies, as we encounter Simba's future love interest, Nala, being attacked by Heartless. She instantly realizes that we're not naturally animals. Well, Donald and Goofy are, but they're more anthropomorphic normally. And while getting the crew more used to their new bodies, fills us in on how Scar taking over has ruined the food supply by their overhunting driving off the prey they depended upon, resulting in the entire region becoming a wasteland. Wait, if they're prey are herbivores, shouldn't that mean the Pride Lands would be overrun with overgrown grazing land and not turn into such barren soil? I know it's meant to be visual flair to emphasize dark times, but The Lion King wasn't that kind of logicless movie. Though Sora has kind of an odd response here.
If they see that I'm stronger than their king, maybe they'll ask me to be their next king.
That is literally the same logic that got Pete thrown out of Disney World. What the hell is Sora thinking? No, seriously, where the hell did this suddenly come from? But Baboon Witch Doctor Rafiki says that won't work, as the line of succession is not that flimsy. To restore balance, they need the proper heir to the throne back. And that means finding... Pete? Okay, he looks outright terrible as a lion. Yeah, Scar and his hyenas are Pete's newest recruits to try and get rid of us, forcing us to run off, and for Nala to reveal the one they need is Simba. As we know Simba's alive and well, it's just a matter of tracking him down out in the jungles off of the Pride Lands. Simba used Roar! The wild Heartless fled!
It's me! Sora! Donald and Goofy are here too! Sora? Donald! Goofy!
Oh, come on! Now you're not even trying with this! Yeah, long story short,
Too late!
we call him into going back and confronting Scar, deciding he's gotta find out who's killed his dad. Sadly, there were no divergences into over-the-top Kazuki Nakashima series, who, in the resulting confrontation, just straight up admits it. Scar dies from being thrown off of a cliff, however, his body reanimates itself, resulting in a zombie lion by the power of Pete's Heartless, making us step in for a boss fight. I'm actually surprised that a supposed Heartless Scar doesn't, well, actually take on the form of a Heartless. But considering Riku's Heartless battle form from Kingdom Hearts 1, it's not entirely without precedent. With this, though, we're done with the Pride Lands, and the last new world on the tour. However, we get a flag that Twilight Town's back, meaning we've got to go see what's going down over there, which begins the second half of the game. As with all the Heartless dealt crippling blows on all the worlds, it's time for the nobodies to take center stage. Turns out the organization, specifically introducing us to Saïx, is here because Axel is here, and Axel has gone completely rogue and is acting on his own.
Axel will stop at nothing to turn you into a Heartless.
For some reason, I don't believe you.
It would break our hearts to hear something happen to you.
Hearts? You don't have any hearts.
But we remember what it was like.
So if they still know what emotions are and feel like, doesn't that make their feelings real?
Hey, how about you get out of my town now? You've caused enough trouble.
He just saved your life, asshole! Wait, it's Cypher. He's always just been a whiny little bitch. The real versions of Roxas' friends, though, fill us in on the Kairi situation. They took her in briefly, but then Axel showed up and dragged her off, leaving their reunion no closer to happening. For some reason, Sora and the kids share a moment of nostalgia that doesn't make any sense in regards to this game to happen, since these kids haven't spent any real time with Sora, and they don't know Roxas for Roxas and Sora's experiences to cover it. Yes, I know that was retconned in 358 over 2 days, but that was not in any way clear here in isolation. And from it, Sora gets the Oathkeeper Keyblade in limit form. While I've not mentioned the Keyblades much as it's obvious when to use them, Oathkeeper's the one you'll want for early drive form training, as it'll pad out your lower gauges until you can raise them to higher bars. Due to the earlier encounter, though, the game says that Sora is now doubting himself due to a seed of darkness supposedly planted in him by the encounter with Saïx. But it doesn't make sense from the presented power of nobodies, the conversation, or Sora's own character, for that to show up. Regardless, we're finally headed back to Hollow Bastion once again, as we get a warning that the Sea of Heartless is flowing out of the castle again, and attacking the villagers alongside the nobodies. As we move through the town, though, we find a familiar face. Cloud, in his emo phase because Advent Children was recently a thing.
This time, we settle it. Me and the one who embodies all the darkness in me.
Do I need to start playing Crawling in My Skin? You know, there's a reason a lot of people have issues with Cloud's characterization in Advent Children.
Whose?
Sephiroth. Tell me if you see him.
Okay, what's he look like?
You've met Sephiroth. Remember? In the first game? If requiring the summons is canon to this game's story, then fighting all the matches of the Olympus Coliseum should be too. You can't have one without the other. Yeah, it's entirely unsurprising that the staff for Kingdom Hearts really didn't grasp Cloud's character arc. It was something of a bigger issue with the compilation of Final Fantasy story expansions as well, where they went back and forth on what they wanted to do with him. Basically leaving him with no character so as to slot him in with whatever they wanted to do with him, as opposed to what happened in Final Fantasy VII, and his mind getting screwed up so he thought he was somebody else. But by the end of the game, he'd rediscovered and actualized his identity. Something that was needlessly repeated in Advent Children.
You know what I told you.
That's right. I am your living legacy.
You see this here with the reassertion of Seven's love triangle between Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa that didn't actually exist if you were paying attention in the original game. Back on point, Leon's crew found the computer Ansem was using and are trying to get into it, But before we get to that, Sora's managed to find a few of the missing pages to Pooh's book, so I take a Pooh break to try jogging Pooh's memory with minigames. It pads out our reagent supply at any rate. As with the original 100 Acre Wood, Pooh's stuff is mostly just straightforward cutscenes of the crew interacting, with no heartless involvement, so there's not much to recap. Hell, the minigames are far more straightforward and less aggravating this time, so it's a breeze to get through. With that break taken, though, we're off to see...
Y, R, P, in position. It's showtime, girls.
The hell? Yeah, this is probably the primary reason why I originally wanted to do Final Fantasy X-2 before getting to Kingdom Hearts 2. Simply so I could discuss the toolbox the Gullwing girls get put in here. To be honest, I don't have an issue with them getting turned into fairies or using it for treasure hunting tactics. What I do is... they don't really do anything. And this is despite it turning out that they actually are working for Maleficent, which is straight out of left field, and then that not actually factoring into anything either. Unlike the characters of 7 and 8, where they at least tried in some fashion to integrate them into some part of the plot, or Ord coming in as a facet of Hades' story in this game, the Gullwings are just here because the game released 2 years before, and the Kingdom Hearts writers were behind its story, so it's basically all needless fan service. They do so little that I honestly almost forgot to even make mention of them. They're here in some scenes, and then completely gone. Regardless, Leon set up shop in Ansem's study, where we find Tifa frantically looking around.
I'm looking for somebody. Have any of you seen a guy with spiky hair?
You mean Shobu? My congratulations towards the people who got that one. Leon shows up and leads us to Ansem's computer, which it turns out is a massive structure underneath the entire town. Looks like you could play the game Crisis at full resolution, without any strain on the system! Problem is they're still locked out of it, meaning we can't just go, "Computer, tell me plots," and get it to do so, requiring us to hunt around for a password, which results in Donald trying to go around that, resulting in all types of bad.
Decision gate breached. You are now under arrest.
Arrest?
Crap, the internet cops are here. Quick, make like Tumblr and hide all the porn! I am interfaced! Well, it turns out the computer didn't kill us, but digitized us and sent us into the system to drop us in it. Code Lyoko joke, Digimon joke, dot hack joke, Gridman joke. We're walking. No, this is actually Space Paranoids, based on the 1980s Disney movie Tron, which was the true originator for the stuck in a game or digital world story device, with it only becoming a more prevalent one-off plot in the 90s before stuff like the series I listed gave it actual prominence. And well, something of a confession. Despite loving the trapped or interacting frequently with the virtual setting scenario and its brand of isekai series, I've never actually seen Tron. Oh, it's been on my list to do so forever, especially after watching Babylon 5 and enjoying Bruce Boxleitner as Commander Sheridan, but, well, I've yet to actually find a copy in good condition. I really need to get around to that, since I'm likely to review more stuff in that subgenre in the future. Hint, hint.
Who are you?
I am Commander Sark.
A heartless commander?
Yes, I'm the one in charge of YouTube's copyright content ID system. You monster! Sark imprisons us to get us out of the way of his plans, allowing us to meet John Sheridan, who fights for the users.
I'm Sora.
And I'm Donald.
Nice to meet you, Tron. Well, I'm Goofy.
He, the actual Tron, reveals that this entire place is a copy of the original system from the movie Tron, taken before it was wrecked and repurposed by Ansem for experiments involving the Heartless. Then Xehanort masquerading as Ansem took over the system, and the Master Control program and Sark are now his minions, with Tron being our ally in stopping them because he was programmed to protect the system and the NCP, and Sark under Xehanort are threats to it. He thus helps us to log out so we can get the password, which Tifa uncovers for us when she starts tearing at the walls and the possibility there are more secret doors.
Say, fellas, did somebody mention the door to darkness?
No, we've asked where the hell you've been! Mickey tips us off that the password isn't the door itself, since we dealt with that last time, but the keyword for it, which is tied to what it needed in order to be opened, the 7 princesses. Though with re-meeting Mickey, this is where we get Master Form. We head back to Drawn, only to have to deal with a light cycle minigame. You know, I bet this was meant to be impressive as a racing minigame, but it just feels tedious. Though at least it breaks up action a bit so we're not just entering and exiting the system to do just one thing. Regardless, once we get past more of Sark's drones, we enter the password, Kyrie, and get access to most of the data. The stuff that's not corrupted about Ansem at least. And we also restore Tron to his full capabilities. His limit break being actually broken and reprogramming all the security drones in the system to destroy everything in your immediate proximity.
I'm disappointed in you, program. Why do you insist on allying with these selfish users?
Because I want to help them. Something written into my code commands me to do what is right.
You're destroying whole worlds.
The others are a disease. You have given us the opportunity to eliminate it. We are grateful. Why do you oppose us?
Because I don't like being used or lied to. See, I finally understood the rules of this war when I saw your planet killers in action. Understanding is a three-edged sword. Your side, their side, and the truth. The truth is, we don't need you anymore.
Seriously, people, if you've not yet, watch Babylon 5. It's really good. He manages to change the password, giving up everything he can. So what's the new password?
Sora!
Donald! Goofy!
What's not corrupted on the drive, though? An image of a blonde guy, which Mickey recognizes as the true Ansem, finally tipping off the rest of us to the whole Xehanort retcon.
We went through all that trouble to defeat an imposter?
Retcon or overly complicated lore? You make the... No, it's both this time.
This is a fake!
Yes, but it's a good fake. Ow.
Sora, Donald, Goofy. Helping others should always come before asking others for help. We're safe and sound and free to choose. So there's no reason we shouldn't choose to help our friends.
Which is why we should probably get back to focusing on the Ocean of Heartless, right? Yes, it's finally time for the most memorable moment of the game. The Battle of the Thousand Heartless. Which surprisingly has a very long lead into it, permitting the reintroduction of... Yeah, baby!